Hello and welcome to the Radio Academy podcast with me, Roisin Hasty, on my mission to take you behind the scenes on the best audio projects out there at the moment. I found a really fun one for you this week.
We're celebrating the best of audio.
The Radio Academy is so swell, so get on board, ring their bell, and get your audio on, your audio on. Get your audio on.
I'm joined by improv performers Katy Schutte and Lloydie James Lloyd, who's also a radio producer who came up with the idea of doing a live improvised comedy show on air.
This is an original podcast from the Jack Radio Network. Discover more on Jack Radio Player. This is Dead British. One brave improviser has no idea which character from history they're about to play, but thankfully, our interviewer knows everything about them.
Hello, I'm Joe Hadley, and every episode, we use a clever spell to bring back a character from British history. Due to that process, some or all of our historical characters' memories might have been affected. So although I know who I'm about to talk to, they don't. So here, finding out who they are at the same time you do, they're British, they were dead, please welcome Beatrix Potter.
Now, we spoke to them while Dead British was still going out on Union Jack before the sad news that Jack Media National Limited had gone into administration, with the 3 Union Jack national stations coming off DAB. We're sending our best wishes to the team at Union Jack, many of whom have been made redundant. The stations are still streaming online, and Dead British is available as a podcast in all the usual places, and they really wanted us to carry on with this episode. So let's get to it. An improv comedy project for the radio. How on earth does that work, Lloydie?
It works surprisingly well, as we discovered. So the show that we put together is called Dead British. The whole thing was recorded in front of a live audience in several recordings that we did in Nottingham. And the improviser, who is being very brave and has no idea who they're about to play, they're supported by a cast of improvisers who help them recreate the historical character in a whole new light, do scenes from their past, do little messages from characters that they knew. They even make up entire songs from a musical of their life.
Wow, that's quite an ambitious project.
Well, we thought, why just make a Common Garden radio show when you can make something that seems insanely ambitious?
Katy, you're one of the performers in it. When you were first approached this idea, what did you think? Because to do comedy for a live audience is one thing when they're in front of you, but that must have been a bit of a headspin to think about doing it for radio as well at the same time.
Yeah, there were actually little things that were useful, notes from Lloydie and discoveries for ourselves where we found out ways that we could make it more accessible for radio or more appropriate for listeners rather than just the people in the room. So just very simple things like, oh, let's see blah, blah, blah is more like let's go to, or can we hear a moment from that, was just an interesting change for us. But also really cool because we got to invent other visual worlds in people's imaginations that could be much bigger perhaps than something we could just do on stage. So it was cool.
And as an idea, when, Lloydie, you were suggesting it to your radio bosses to get this on air, what was the reaction?
Well, this was a project that was funded by the Audio Content Fund. So firstly, we had to have a radio station that was going to agree to broadcast it. Then we had to convince the Audio Content Fund to fund it. So we had to convince an awful lot of people. And thankfully, actually, the Audio Content Fund make it really easy for you to make a pitch because they've got some really useful criteria in terms of what they call additionality. So improv had rarely featured as an art form on the radio. Like, we've made 12 episodes. There were only 6 episodes of the original radio series of Whose Line Is It Anyway that were made. So it was something that wasn't on the radio at the moment, but that has a huge amount of popularity in the UK. It's been an art form that has grown and grown and grown, from people playing it in small back rooms to, people like Showstopper and Ostentatious playing on the West End. And all of that kind of growth has happened in 10 years. So we were able to say, this is huge. This isn't being catered for. before, and here's a bunch of top performers who want to do this particular format.
Mm-hmm. And how did the improv live recordings actually work? Because, as you say, the performers had no idea who they were going to be. You had a live audience to contend with, and on top of that, you've got the added layer of this needs to work as a radio show as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, radio comedies have been recorded for 100 years or so, and the BBC certainly have a track record of that. And whilst there haven't been very many improvised ones recorded other than Whose Line Is It Anyway?, a few ostentatious specials, and some episodes of a Paul Merton series called The Masterson Inheritance, nonetheless, radio comedy as a whole is something that is still recorded in front of live studio audiences in the UK and in the USA. So we were basically, doing that, getting a live audience to understand what improv is, and then allowing them to enjoy really talented performers doing what they do best. Because an improviser never knows exactly what they're going to go and do on stage, and this was exactly the same, but on the radio.
One of the inspirations for the story of Peter Rabbit was your real rabbit. You described in the letter as being clever at learning tricks. What sort of tricks did your rabbit know how to do?
Well, I started with the obvious, stick him in a hat, pull him out, that sort of thing. He was great at that. It's quite easy, really, quite standard.
That's very good.
Were there any moments in the live recording when it did go really wrong and you were like, you had any funny stories?
I think it's just delightful when you are invited to sing a song, or we try and give each other song titles and things. You're like, oh my gosh, right, okay, we're going to do a whole musical about this thing that we just learned about. So for us, there's a little bit where your brain is going, okay, what are all the rhymes that could have anything to do with this? Or what style of song are we in? And we had a great musician as well who was playing along with us. So I think it can't go wrong in a way, in that if we commit to it, then it's really fun. So even if it's inaccurate or out of tune or something, there's like an artistic reason. So we'll justify everything. But yeah, it was great. The collaboration was really enjoyable for me to make little songs and harmonies and discoveries together.
Yeah, I can tell it's an idea that you both have really enjoyed, and it's a project you've enjoyed working on, because as you're talking to me, your faces are like lighting up, even with like the memory of actually doing it. Lloydie, obviously you've got a passion for improv anyway. Is that kind of what drove the idea for you in the starting point? You were like, well, this is one area of my life that I enjoy. I also enjoy radio. Let's merge the two.
Oh, this has been a complete, absolute dream project for me, because I am part-time. I work in radio, and the rest of my time I'm an improviser and work either teaching or performing that. So to bring the two together has been an utter dream. And just going back to the whole point of, did anyone get anything, wrong? Did it ever go terribly wrong? I mean, those have been some of the most delightful moments. And the way we get ourselves out of those scrapes has been just such a source of fun. The other thing, actually, that's just reminded me, there was one song that happened, I think, in the second set of recordings. So we did 4 recording nights, and on each night we recorded 3 episodes. And there was one song which frankly was just filthy. I mean, it's not one we could put on the air at 7 p.m. on a UK regulated radio station. I'm hoping when I send it to Union Jack, because it's one that has not been fully edited yet anyway, I'm hoping they'll let me put it in the podcast version, because it's hilarious. But my goodness, it's dirty. It's a dirty, dirty song. And it's just the way it happened in the moment. And as it was happening, I could slowly but surely feel more and more audience eyes coming across to my side of the stage. I would stand as the producer just at the side of the stage, just on the edge by the curtain, in case I had to go on and, give any instructions, and I would warm up the audience beforehand. And by the end of the song, no one was looking at the performers. They were all looking at me, and I was just kind of shrugging my shoulders going, I don't know how to do this.
Which is such a unique position to be in as a producer, or anyone that works on radio, because we famously cannot see our audience if we're broadcasting. So to see their direct response must be amazing.
Oh, it's one of the... there have been so many delightful moments about this project, but one of the most joyous moments was the very first night of live recordings, because we had built up for over a year to that moment. And to go in front of that audience and hear them react and hear them in absolute fits of laughter as people did things like to hear Isaac Newton rapping and to then hear them just burst into spontaneous applause. We were like, oh no, we've got a thing here. This is good. And that was so reassuring and so lovely.
Yo, yeah, that's right. It gives me confusion to realise I stand here, Isaac Newton. Let me grab the microphone and mother flipping twist this. Yeah, that's right, I'm a master of physics. I know about things, and yes, it's the truth, cause I can rhyme with physics and also with fruit. Yeah, that is right, cause I got that rap flow. These rhymes are even juicier than a mango.
Katy, were you worried as a performer about how a radio audience would take this comedy, would take this performance when they can't see it?
I guess I'm a weird kind of optimist where I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Maybe that helps me do this kind of show. But I thought if there was a reality where they didn't enjoy it, we would enjoy it, like the cast. So I felt quite secure and happy in that moment. I did wonder about having 3 shows back to back, and I thought, oh, probably some people will leave, and because it's a lot, they're like 45-minute recordings each or something like that. But everyone stayed and was really into all of the performances, and then hung around for a chat and stuff. So I think, their enthusiasm wildly exceeded what I was hoping for. I hoped they'd just be interested and amused, but they were very excited, and I think they enjoyed seeing behind the scenes as well, the live recording, and seeing how it fit together and how we might communicate with each other. That's also very interesting, I think, for them.
And as the episodes have been going out on air, what's the reaction been like? Has it been interesting to have experienced firsthand the live audience and then get this almost secondary audience listening to the radio programme version of it?
One of the real delights, actually, of listening to the going out live is that one of the things that we baked into the on-air format was that there would be some songs in between the 4 segments that happen on air. So there's a podcast version, which is just over half an hour long, but the on-air version actually stretches out to an hour because you've got, there's a couple of commercial breaks, but you've also got some songs in between. And Charlie at Union Jack has played an absolute blinder in finding the most suitable songs to go in between. And it has been, so for me, because I don't know what they're going to be, even as producer, I am really surprised and delighted by it. But hearing it going out and then having people pinging me messages as it goes out and, seeing reaction has been just absolutely thrilling and exciting. And I thought I'd listen to the first one and then I wouldn't, listen to the rest going out live. But I can't help myself. I need to listen to everyone go out, partly just to hear Charlie's songs selections, but also there is something very magical about it, hearing a radio comedy go out on air. I've always been a fan of radio comedy, and just being able to listen to it and go, oh, we made that, that will never get old.
I love hearing a live studio audience when I listen to things, and you know the difference between like a click track, laugh track, and a real in the room audience, because you can hear the individuals reacting to stuff, and I love listening to that. And whenever I listen to radio comedy, I really feel it, and it gives you permission to like laugh in your own house on your own, and I think that's great. So it's infectious and joyful. It's nice.
It's also way more intimate as well, isn't it, to listen to something go out on the radio? So if, as a performer, as a producer that's worked on this, you were obviously in the room as it happened, but then you also get the luxury of having this intimate experience of it going out on air as well. And so you're the performer and you then become the audience.
That is an incredible thing about improvisation, actually, that generally when we improvise a show, it's often to a live audience and it isn't recorded. So it's just like a piece of sand art that's washed away. We remember it maybe, and the people that were there remember it, or maybe even quote it back to you one day, or sing a little bit of an improvised song. But apart from that, it's disappeared. So it's actually really nice and quite a treat, I think, for a lot of us to listen back to a full improvised show and be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone that does live radio links can relate to that, because the adrenaline gets you through that moment and you're a bit like, oh, I didn't know I had that in me.
Yeah.
Now that the project is happening, it's going out on air, you've obviously taped the live recordings. What have you each learned from the process? So sort of like 3 big lessons that you've learned from going through this that you would want to share with anyone listening to this who is thinking about a similarly ambitious project.
Firstly, the old radio adage of do the prep. I mean, we really did. We knew what we wanted the format to be before we submitted it, even though we'd put it together during the pandemic on Zoom and we weren't able to properly workshop it. We knew what we wanted it to be, and that was really important. Also, in terms of prep, a lot of work with the venue, belt and braces. I wanted to make sure there was an extra audio engineer there. I wanted someone else checking the tracks. I wanted it double recorded, things like that. And then to make sure we had the right improvisers, and that was partly through the Maydays that Katy and I are both members of, which is a company that's been going nearly 20 years now in the UK, very well established improv company. So we knew there would be quality through that, and they'd also helped us kind of workshop the idea on Zoom, and also through auditioning improvisers, particularly in the Midlands, because this was not a London-based project. This project was produced, recorded, edited in Nottingham in the East Midlands, and we've got a lot of East Midlands improvisers where there is a huge improv scene. They're involved because they are absolutely great. So again, preparing them, auditioning them on the recording days. There were 3 recordings, but in the afternoons we had 3 run-throughs using different historical characters from America rather than Britain, so that everybody had 3 goes at doing the format, so that they knew this is how the show works. This might not be what we're recording tonight, but this is the feel of the show. So in every respect, doing our prep, I think, was really important. I think being bold and ambitious, the joy of the Audio Content Fund is that they deliberately want to take risks on new material, and obviously there are safeguards in terms of quality and the people being involved knowing having a track record, but nonetheless everything that is funded by the Audio Content Fund is a new project. So having a bit of balls to go for it and say, no, this has not been done before, we're going to go do it, and we're going to make sure it is as different and new as possible. And I think the third thing is kind of about trust and support, really, which is a bit of an improv-y thing to say, but actually working with people, whether you've worked with them before or not, but having that level of trust. Once those improvisers are on stage, I can't be, as a producer, going in every 5 minutes and coaching them and saying, no, I want you to stop, deliver it like this. Maybe it'd be better if you said that. I have got to 100% trust them, and any retakes we did were only for the very tiny bits at the top and tail of the show, which have small bits of script attached to them, the welcome to and the what have you. Those are the only bits we had retakes for. So
interesting. I'm so interested in this project. And as soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, I need to get these guys on the podcast because this sounds amazing. Obviously, I'm sat here with 2 improv performers. I'd be stupid to pass up the opportunity to put you both on the spot. Could I get you to come up with a really quick, Radio Academy podcast jingle?
Give me 2 seconds to plug in my laptop battery and I'll see what I can do for you.
Is that one of the improv techniques to buy a bit of time?
No, it's genuinely not, I promise you. Okay, some kind of... What do you want? In what kind of format do you want this, Roisin?
I like the idea. I mean, you've mentioned you do musicals within the show. I think a musical rendition, it can be a cappella. I'm not going to expect instruments at this short notice.
Yeah, we can do one. We can do a little jingle.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Oh no, we're celebrating the best of audio.
The Radio Academy is so swell, so get on board, ring their bell, and get your audio on, your audio on. Get your audio on.
Audio on.
And on.
Radio Academy podcast.
Oh, I ruined it at the end there. There we go. We now have our own Radio Academy jingle. What a bonus out of this episode. If you enjoyed listening, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, let us know if there's something you'd like to hear featured. Email us at podcast@radioacademy.org. Remember, we couldn't make these episodes without the support of Radio Academy members. So if you'd like to join, it's £3 a month and you can get access to loads of other great resources like online events and advice from others in the industry. Thanks for listening.